drive around and, anyway, I'm ready, all set? Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:06. Thank you everyone for your patience. Sorry I'm a little behind schedule.
All right.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Was that Laura?
Yes.
Thank you, Laura. Any changes, additions?
Nothing.
Good?
For me.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Meeting minutes.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Trying to get my screen to catch up. Any changes, corrections, additions? No? All good? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any?
I abstain.
One abstention. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor and one abstention.
That's right.
From Nick. All right, citizen comments. Is anyone here for something that's not on the agenda? No? Good. All right. Appointment of the representative and alternate to the Addison County Regional Planning Commission. Is Andy Hooper or Hugh McLaughlin here? Welcome. I'm sorry?
Andy Hooper is here?
Welcome, Andy. Do you want to come up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Heather,
Yes,
as you
hi,
can see.
I've got your names. Thanks.
We're not
Do
gonna
you wanna-
rotate him around, Andy.
Okay, good, appreciate that.
Do you want to take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about, we have your information that you sent us?
Yeah, I've been living in Middlebury for 5 years. I moved here from Montpelier when I met my wife. The drive, the commute for dates was pretty long. It was good to consolidate. In the last few years, we've gotten married, bought a house, figured some things out, and I'm feeling at a time to start taking on some more responsibilities and maybe help give back to the community. I was quite active in local governance when I was in Montpelier. I did 4 terms on the city council, as well as numerous committees thereof, the representative of the solid waste district, to the EC fiber, fiber optic thingamabob, the infrastructure committee, and various rotating committees of the council.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I also mentioned that Hugh McLaughlin was our other candidate. He called to send his regrets. He was called unexpectedly into work, but he remains very interested and would be here if he could.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Andy?
No, I think, when I was just looking at the list of things that you did in Montpelier, several struck me as, yeah, this is good stuff. And the part of also the master plan.
Yeah.
Because we're at that critical stage right now of this.
No, exactly, yeah.
That was really, that was a good thing to put in there. That was very helpful. So I'm very impressed. In fact, both with you and with Hugh, it's nice to have a couple of really good quality people.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do well.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I would just echo what Nick just said. We're fortunate to have 2 very qualified candidates and we have lots of committees for which we welcome your participation.
Great.
Starting with this one.
Wonderful.
So we don't have to do the nomination and approval, we can do a direct?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I would, actually. And I looked them both over, and this was tough, because they're both good, but the fact that we can have a principal and an alternate made it that much better, so we're getting 2. So I actually would move to appoint Andy Hooper as the Middlebury representative to the Addison County Regional Planning Commission, and Hugh McLaughlin as the alternate.
Second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other discussion? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Will they be in touch with agendas? What's the next?
Yes, I will
Please.
convey your contact information to the executive director of
Perfect.
the Regional Planning Commission, and he will be in touch.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Andy.
All right. Procurement requests from Bill.
Yes,
Are you covering those?
I'll be
Okay.
covering those. Bill has submitted 2 procurement requests. Is the mic working okay? One for the replacement of a V-plow for the new Bobcat Toolcat that was purchased last year. This is a plow that will actually work with our piece of equipment. Bill reached out to 3 different vendors to find this replacement plow, and the only one that could provide it was Iroquois of Heinsberg, as outlined in his memo to you. So he returned the plow that was purchased with the Toolcat for a credit of $3,544, and the new piece of equipment is $5,090 for a net purchase price of $1,545.78.
So are we getting the full credit when we return? Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to award a contract to Iroquois Manufacturing Company for the purchase of a replacement V-plow for the Bobcat Toolcat for a total cost of $5,090.
Thank you, Lindsay. Discussion? None?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the high roof cargo van for the water department.
Okay, so you have in your packet Bill's analysis of a new, on the bids for a new high-top cargo van for the water department. This is a replacement of piece of equipment for an existing water department van, which is in quite poor shape at this point. You had 2 bids, one from Foster's and one from G. Stone's. I'll pull those up for you.
So I had some questions that you answered.
Heather asked why wasn't this presented to town meeting? And that is because this is a piece of equipment from the water department, and the water department sets aside money each year to make replacement purchase, so there's no need to go to town meeting to ask for approval for borrowing. We have the cash in hand. It's a replacement piece of equipment in which it was outlined to the infrastructure committee last year when it reviewed the equipment schedule prepared by staff.
Okay.
Good to know.
Any other?
And those were good questions. Thank you, Heather.
Any other comments, questions?
It looked like the process was fair, so.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that he put it through the renewable energy policy filter, even though it's a vehicle that doesn't quite fit. But it was interesting for me to see the comparison of vehicles that are on the market. And for those of you who might be watching, there's a website called Drive Electric VT that can show you all the range of electric vehicles that are on the market in Vermont right now and their mileage, and a very useful comparison chart. So the town is using that when it can, to look at future purchases of vehicles. So when we have alignment, we try to go in that direction. In this case, it's a different kind of a piece of equipment, so it didn't fit.
So one of the things Bill mentioned in his memo to you was about the guidance language about how to approach this about energy.
So the Energy Committee is reviewing
Yeah.
the proposed purchasing the renewable energy purchasing policy at its upcoming meeting next Wednesday. I've asked Bill Kernan, Dan Werner, Tom Hanley, and David Shaw to provide written comments for the Energy
Yeah.
Committee's consideration.
And we have it tentatively scheduled for a review in a future.
Right, at our October 29th meeting, that'll be coming
Yeah.
back to the board.
Okay. Would somebody like to make?
So does that mean we're waiting to approve this until they've vetted it? or-
No, no,
No,
no,
no.
just to change the, because
Oh.
they had requested, I'm sorry. go ahead.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
They have the departments had requested guidance language, which was completely missed in the final draft of the policy.
Okay, all right.
So we can approve the purchase of the vehicle.
Mhm.
We're just waiting to discuss the energy policy, purchasing policy till next time.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
all right.
So would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to award a contract to G-Stone Motors for the purchase of a replacement high-roof cargo van for the water department for a total cost after trade-in of $34,516.
A second.
Thank you, Nick. Any other discussion, comments? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Consideration of memorandum of agreement with Purpose Energy regarding sewer connection fees. Kathleen, there was a minor revision earlier today, correct?
Correct. So I took the board's discussion of its last meeting, prepared an MOU, reviewed it by council and by Eric Fitch. He got back to me earlier today requesting a slightly different term of the agreement. It was originally a 5-year term for the connection fee agreement. He asked for a 10-year term, and I countered, and he accepted a 5-year term with a 5-year renewal if he is in compliance with the original terms of the MOU after that time.
Okay.
That was a good counter.
Yes, thank
That
you.
was good, thank you.
I do like the language that says if he's in compliance too. I think that,
And I also should note, before the board moves on this, that the planning commission does have some concerns about the siting of the building, the Purpose Energy
that.
building. And we should address those perhaps as part of the Public Utilities Commission review of that, depending on how that goes out of the review process.
so it doesn't have to go through regular DRB?
No.
Oh, okay.
He may run it through DRB. That hasn't been decided yet.
Okay.
That makes sense, but not part of this motion.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Motion,
sure.
comments?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing this thing, and I think it's, I appreciate the work that everybody's done on the staff.
Yep.
And as we move towards something that was an undefined area, so.
Yeah.
I move to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign a memorandum of agreement with Purpose Energy regarding wastewater connection fees for the company's proposed anaerobic digester facility on Industrial Avenue.
Second?
Second,
Thank you, Laura. Any other discussion, comments? No? Good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. You guys are making my job so easy.
It's early in the
So
evening
much.
yet.
on schedule.
It's early still. Okay, Doug Lazarus, request for town to serve as fiscal agent for an art display project. Is Doug here?
I don't see him yet.
Okay, but we're early, right?
We're a little bit early.
5 minutes.
I was late and we're early. Doing good. Should we jump ahead? We don't have anything.
I think so.
9.
Karen, are you guys ready? Would you like to, we're taking you out of line. And Nancy? There's wheelie chairs that will come around easily. While you guys are figuring out chairs, I would like to say, while Jim is here and you guys are here, that I've been down to the post office a few times recently, and every single time I've gone downtown, There have been people standing, reading the signs.
I see that. I see that too, every
By the-
time.
By the
Every
post
time, every time.
There are people actually standing there reading them, so.
No, they're not.
Nancy, we got one. Nancy, we're good. We're good.
I haven't seen any head scratching, but I have seen people standing there reading, so, was that a V-Trans funded thing, or was that Neighbor Together?
No.
Yeah, V-Trans funded
Did
it.
the
and
signs.
I developed it with the engineering folks.
So we should just give them feedback that I think that was a good investment.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
welcome.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
We owe you an update, as was agreed upon way back, and we will be doing the same with the state of Vermont with some metrics, so we will move forward. I think you're all very familiar with our missions and objectives, so I don't think we need to spend any time on that, really, unless you have questions.
Hasn't changed.
Nothing's
Just
changed.
a reminder.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
We're working. We started out, we did 30 miles in 30 days. We worked with Rise Vermont. And part of our idea on that was to try to get people to understand where parking was, that they could park off-site. And it wasn't that far, and some maps and where it was. We then, and the hospital with Rise Vermont did a lot of special things with some talking to, or some introductory informative talks from the different walk with the docs, that kind of thing. We were also informed by the federal government when they reviewed our budget that we were not in the business of health, and so that we really can't do this part of we couldn't really put any money into this program from our budget. So while we completely support it, and it certainly does serve us to know where all the parking area is and that we are healthy and walking, we are not going to be following through with this piece of it at all.
Well, we've just changed our focus to more wayfinding, accessibility, and signage.
Yeah,
So
and
that's where that
we'll
money
get
shifts.
we'll get to that piece. We did the creative economy piece again with flowers, and we did some of the fence art. As are you probably well aware, the fences are moving around daily and are moved and laid down on the ground and all that. So while we still are involved in that, and it's certainly enjoyable, and hopefully we'll have a few more up before the winter, it's pretty much where we are now. So.
And then on August, what day? 15th, 14th, we held the block party.
Mid-August.
It's all a big blur at the moment. We held the downtown block party this year. It's so hard to guess how many people when everybody's in a small space like that, but I think that we can pretty conservatively estimate about 2,000 people attended this year, which is an uptick from last year. We did keep track of the receipts that were coming in at that 25, spend 25, you bring in your receipt and you get $10 of, 10 tickets to enter the raffle prizes. And from that, we were able to extrapolate about a similar investment as last year, which indicates even though we had more people probably weren't shopping quite as much. It was also a beautiful evening and we had a lot going on. So, one of the things about this particular event is we really try to thread the needle between building community and making people feel like this is a vibrant, healthy, wonderful place to live and want to feel connected to, and then also wanting to support the businesses. So I think that we certainly accomplished that, but it's always interesting to kind of see how the more events you have or the more things you have going on, the less people are in stores. So we really just try to find that right balance every year. All of the free and purchased food ran out before the end of the event, about an hour to go. We gave away $1,800 worth of raffle prizes, which we'd purchased as part of that grant funding. And we had over 200 volunteers that came to help us either promote the event, set it up, work during the event, took it down, and then we had a group of JV and varsity soccer players from the high school went to Habitat the next day and laid that sod down. So that was great. And then these are some pictures that Heather took as well as Jason Duquette Hoffman. And the dunk tank was a hit. Again, thank you to Kathleen for
Kathleen.
bravely volunteering. The water was a balmy 47 degrees that day. So we really appreciate that. I use the word volunteer very loosely.
You were a good sport.
Yes, she was.
Good
And we do appreciate it. I heard at the Parks and Rec Committee that the dunk tank raised $600 that night for their scholarship fund, which is great, and I'm happy that we were able to help do that for them too. They're always supportive of the things that we do as well, as is the fire department and DPW. So we really rely on those partnerships within the town and are very appreciative of that. And then I just included some of the testimonials from a few of the downtown merchants that night who gave me a little bit of feedback after. And another picture, I think that one was from Heather. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sue Hoxie to talk about digital media marketing. So we've hired Sue as a contracted employee per the part of that funding at the beginning of the year, that $32,000 that had rolled over from the previous year went to fund Sue's position for the rest of this year. And so Sue has been working on our website and other digital media marketing for us. So she's going to let us know what she's been up to.
Kathleen, are you going to be clicking through to the actual website?
I could do that. Let's see. What is it?
Thanks.
Experience Middlebury.
Okay, so I started this project earlier this year and did a thorough site audit of what was delivered originally last October, and went through and identified the things that weren't working functionally and poor user experience. So the refresh site was just launched last Thursday, so the changes that you see are not hugely significant, but taking a look at the homepage, one of the things that we did was make the homepage banner a little bit shorter, more narrow, so it shows up above the fold. And then the other problem with the old website was that there wasn't really any way to highlight anything on the site, so we've created these tout zones. So those are the three buttons that you see below, the spooktacular events and tasting rooms, and those all click through to other things. So these I can change anytime to highlight whatever is going on in town. So let's see, and then Kathleen, if you could scroll down a little bit still on the home page. So we rewrote the homepage copy and included numerous links to it that can link to other places on the website. So this is going to help with search engine optimization. And then there are a few other miscellaneous changes that we made to navigation. So if you could just hover on the About link. So the About link is new, and we added links there to community partners, the Bridge Project, and Neighbors Together. So like links to the Bridge Project and Neighbors Together were missing from the previous version of the website. So Kathleen, can we go to, if you can scroll up a little bit and click the event? Yep. Okay. So the events section of the website is probably one of the ones that needed the most work. So before, there was no way to sort events by date or by activity or category. So if you could click on filter by date. So now you can choose a date range on what you might be looking at. And if you could click on filter by category.
That'll be an email tomorrow.
Can you just try refreshing the page? Because it had worked. Let's try filter by category. Okay. So what should be there are shop, eat, experience, music, theater, and dance, so that people could just search on kids' events, for example. So those were some of the improvements, and then also the switch to calendar view in the right side there. Yep. So we made that link a lot more obvious. We made some changes to the event listings. Like before, if you were to click on October 4th, you would only see one event, there was no way to get to other events. So we've added those previous event and next event buttons at the top of the screen there so that you can see the other events going on that day. Let's see. Can we go back to the previous page? And if you could scroll down, please. All right. So before, you would only see 6 events at a time, and they've implemented this feature called lazy load. So as you scroll down on the screen, more events continue to load. So the same thing has been implemented on the business pages. So on the business pages, if you were at the end of the alphabet, you were inconvenient at best. You had to hit next or load more 9 times to get down to the V's. So this, as you scroll down, things continue to add. Okay, so some other little changes that we made. As people submitted events, the event form asked for the information as to the event location, but it never showed up on the web page. So these were just a variety of things that were poorly delivered with the original website. We've also added fields for ticket sales and prices. Okay, so I think that covers events. So Kathleen, if we could go to shop. So we really winnowed down the criteria for what businesses should be included here. So we took out some things like car dealers. We really focused on businesses that are focused on retail, both for residents and for visitors. We also have this ability to sort alphabetically now. Before, there was no way to get to other businesses except for hitting that View More button. So again, if you scroll down, these will lazy load. Yep, so see more businesses showed up there. Let's see, every restaurant was recategorized for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We created a directory page for tasting rooms. So Kathleen, could you go to taste, hover over that, and then down to tasting rooms? So this is treated differently now. Before it was just text, and if you scroll down, you'll start to see the same sort of business listings that you see on the shop and the restaurant page, so that there's some continuity as to how businesses are presented. Could we?
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? So
Yep.
Kathleen, if you scroll down just a little bit, one of the things that Sue is going to be working on next is, if you see that image that's right above Middlebury Tasting Trail, how it's distorted. So we now have, we had an issue with most of our images loading onto the previous, or our first iteration of this website. And so now Sue's next really big
I'm
task
in it.
is she's going through every image and actually manually resizing it to be the correct image, so that then when we then load new images, each time it's going to fit exactly the box that it should be in. So as soon as she's ready to go on that.
I have a handful left.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So all of those images will very soon be all properly sized.
Yeah,
which is
so
going to make a huge difference in the aesthetic.
There was no standardization set forth by the web site developer as to what the image sizes should be. So if click through on any one. So there's that banner image across the top, and then, actually this is probably like the worst example. Yeah, I did Otter Creek Brewing today, so let's look at that one. Yes. So standard size banner on the top, and then these ones on the lower right are called featured images. So they're all the same size now. And then, again, we added the next and previous navigation, so you can get back and forth between different restaurants. And that is it. That's been keeping me busy. Yeah.
So a lot of the things that Sue has been working on and what we've dealt with Hark in fixing some of these things were things that we really felt like had not been delivered upon in the first round. And so when we went back to them and really made that case, and we were able to
we continue to make that
continue
case.
to make that case, but we're working on that with them. But you know, we still have, as you saw, a few little tweaks here and there. But for the most part, I think some relatively small changes have made a big impact on the aesthetic and the functionality of the website. And I thank Sue for her efforts on this because she's really taken the lead and I think done a great job. And then we move us over to Bundle for our last few minutes.
So,
Yes, yeah, go ahead, please.
And great job, by the way. It's beautiful. More and more people use mobile devices to access the websites.
Yep.
Would these pictures fit in the mobile version just like on a desktop?
Right.
So a lot of times I experience in different organizations, like they design a website, then the mobile, you cannot fit the picture, you have to scroll through and stuff.
Right,
So
so,
this is all compatible.
so the site has been thoroughly tested on
Okay.
desktop, tablet, and mobile. So, you know, the layout is different. Mobile, you'll see just everything in a long column.
Sure.
But,
Yep.
yeah, it's
Okay.
all tested.
Thank you.
So where on the site does it show how to navigate Middlebury, like parking?
It was under shop, I think, shop, and then,
No, I
Or it's
think it's,
moved.
no, it's under,
Visit.
go to visit,
yes.
and then parking information.
Yeah.
That's just parking? Does it provide links to other ways that you can navigate?
Not yet, but it will when we have
Middlebury.
that document done, which
Mhm.
is what we're working on now. The document that will include where the bike racks are, the actor shuttle, all of the alternative transportation means. That's all going to be worked on as part of our work in the spring to have that document created. Once that document's created, we'll put it on our website. All right, Bundle.
All right, so we've moved Bundle from 60 Main Street to 51 Main as of September 1st. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the new location. So since September 1st, we've had 6 events at Bundle with 290 participants, everything from swing dances to the Addison County Cheesemakers and the Tasting Trail. The items particular to the new location include a rent increase of $1,200 to $1,500. There's been a large investment of time to clean the location by myself personally so that the goal of getting a long-term renter can be achieved. The kitchen needs extensive cleaning and equipment cleaning, repairs or disposal and replacement of the equipment, and an inspection to actually be usable. So that part of 51 Main is not usable at this point. We can use the sinks at the most. It's a large location. It has possibilities of being a multi-use space, which has required conferencing with other people who have done this in other towns. So through a National Arts Fellowship that I've received, I've been given a mentor in Bradford, Vermont, named Monique Priestley, and she's at the Space on Main. And so I've been consulting with her as to how they changed a Woolworth store into a co-working location for their town. I've been consulting with other creatives, entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and college students to determine the possibilities of the location. I'm working with Alan Saltis and Maura Cook of the Department of Health to come up with a policy for Bundle vendors regarding alcohol sampling and serving that is different than what we had said originally about the 60 Main Street location, because there wasn't really a need for that there. This location is obvious that it probably could be a restaurant at some point. So as we determine what that policy would look like, I'll bring that back to the select board. So additional meetings outside of vendors. I hadn't ever anticipated that this was going to become a big role working for the Bundle project, but I thought that I would just go through it so you can see that it's not just scheduling events and holding events, but also this month I've met with the Vermont Youth Works, and we did a presentation about Bundle with the students there. We've also met with the Vermont the Makery and the Adult Learning Center, possibilities for use of their kitchen to prep food service through adult learning to be served at Bundle, so people coming in with catering certificates. And that's one way we can get around using the kitchen but still present what the possibilities of this new location are. I attended the downtown retreat at Grand Isle Lake House and presented the bundle concept to other towns, giving them brainstorming ideas that have been successful for us and not successful. And then we met with the Virgin's Economic Health Committee just this week, as well as the BMP. And we brainstormed ideas that Virgins can work in partnership with us so that we're not canceling out each other's events, but we're actually helping each other's events. So scheduling on opposite nights. And Karen and I would like to move forward to do that also with Bristol and bring them into the loop so that we're working on the concept of bundle countywide. Even though bundle will remain here, it's something that definitely can help out their economies too. And then the Vermont Creative Network Focus Group, organized by the Vermont Art Council, just took place last week. And that was really to hear different creative capacities around town and how creative capacities can serve municipalities. So that is Bundle in a nutshell. It's an
It's like
exhausting
speed dating
nutshell.
over here. All right, let's finish this up, and then we will be happy to take your questions. So basically what we've given you tonight is an idea of what we've been doing this year, and really what we've been doing since the money came our way in July. So a lot of work has happened in a fairly short amount of time, but a lot of what we're focusing on right now is getting ourselves ready for next summer. And so we are in the process of figuring out the logistics and all of the details around the deal of the week concept. That includes one-on-one meetings with merchants. We are in the process of figuring out what the conceptual designs are behind the visitor-driven marketing and communication that we're planning. We are also in the process of, we had both of our summer concerts get canceled this summer due to rain. And so as a group, we kind of came back together and decided to rethink the special events. We still want to do a block party, but we decided we really want to focus on maybe micro events on Wednesday nights in June and July next year and have it be a weekly, smaller scale opportunity to come downtown. So that's what that looks like.
And with that, we also are going to have observation decks, and Kubricki has agreed to do some talks about what's going on at the same time. CCV has offered their space so we can look right down on it, so that should be fun. In addition, there'll be scavenger hunts. That could probably be, they haven't been totally formed, but it'll be weekly, perhaps weekly, both adult and children oriented. So just trying to bring different ideas to keep bringing people downtown.
One of the really fun ones that we figured out is that we're going to hide gems. If anybody's come to Winterfest and seen the kids digging for gemstones in the pile of snow, it's like the most popular activity that we've ever done somehow, and yet it's so simple. And so we're going to actually hide gems around downtown for kids to find, and they can turn them in for Middlebury money or they can keep them. But we're just trying to figure out all of those various points of motivation that we can offer to all of the demographics to just try to continue to keep them coming into the downtown. We're working on our local advertising, so I had a great meeting today, in fact, and setting up all of what that looks like on a weekly basis with the various local media. And then we're working, of course, on continuing to shore up the Middlebury Money program, and offer shopping incentives utilizing the Middlebury money.
And in addition to that, working with actual companies, businesses in town, whether it's like employee thank yous or incentives or year-end bonus or just any opportunity that they could use Middlebury money. We're trying to promote that so that the whole community is involved in it. Wayfinding. What we looked at the wayfinding piece, which was one of the major things that came through with the forums. How do we get around the accessibility and all that? And we pretty much looked at it as what can we really do? What is possible? And one of the things is dealing with the parking. And so to that extent, we have approached all of our businesses downtown, not just retail, but all businesses, including town employees, all that. Where do they park now? How many places do they need? All of that. And we're also trying to look at other parking alternatives where they may not be right smack in the middle of town, but certainly walkable, especially because it's summer, and match up some of those places so that we will hopefully clear out of the center part of downtown some parking for visitors and shoppers and that. So that's one thing that we're working on. And looking into bike racks is another piece that we're doing. Anyway, just pretty much that.
Yeah. Any questions? We've taken a lot of your time, we realize, so
Sorry.
We're happy to,
Yeah.
come back at any point, but if anyone has any specific questions, we're happy to answer them.
I do. So one thing that's later on our agenda is like how to address the growing number of visitors that we have on our green. And so we're also thinking about that. And I don't know if you can stay, but it would be helpful maybe if you stay for that discussion, because it has to do with what amenities we provide or don't provide.
Yeah.
That people have been asking us for, not only this population, but also, tourists. So, and I'm talking about water fountain, porta potty, Wi-Fi access, those kinds of amenities. And I'm curious to know where you are in those conversations.
Well, so basically with Wi-Fi, we had kind of started the initial discussion, we did some research, and then we kind of got it as far as we felt like our group could take it, and then we packaged it up and said, it didn't seem like a super clear-cut path forward at that point, based on the research that we had found. So we really had kind of just packaged that up and felt like it was then up to the town to kind of take it the next step if you guys wanted to. But the initial stages of getting in touch with some of the communities and figuring out how they had gotten started has been at least done to get us going.
And there was, of course, the secured versus not secured websites, and so a lot of different feelings on that. And we felt that really wasn't where we could be putting our money. Likewise,
it was a lot of it. There was a lot. It was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. Yeah.
Right.
Likewise, I think you mentioned public bathrooms, that sort of thing. That came up when there were the discussions on the parks, on the various parks, and sorry, and once again, that's something that when the parks were being developed and as far it was a financial thing, and that isn't what we can do. So as far as our group, we'd love to have public bathrooms, just as an aside, but that's not part of what we can do as our group. What was your other question?
Water.
Water. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing if they are put into parks or whatever, but I think that's a town select board kind of decision.
I would say,
That's not
separating myself out
us.
from Neighbors Together for a minute and putting the BMP hat on, it's the public bathroom piece is the thing I hear
Huge.
the most behind parking from
Yep.
merchants as a thing that they would like to see in our downtown. Now, during the day, we do have, the library and here are both places that you can go. I know Marquee has generally been very, gracious about letting people come in and use their bathroom as well at different points. So, but I do hear that often as a request from merchants that the town be looking at public bathrooms.
I would say that's the number one thing that keeps coming up. It's just not on our playlist, so to speak.
I have heard that even the construction porta potties are really valuable to people. So I'm just talking about that, I know they're not attractive, but it's very practical. And I don't know, I know it's like $99 a month that you pay for something like that, but is that something for us to strategically place? I'm not talking about building a concrete public bathroom.
Although that would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And water, it's just a water fountain, like that would be accessible after hours, like that 6 to 9, on period of time.
Yeah, my understanding at this point is that the town is dealing with some issues with.
I know they are.
With people using gardens and things like that as bathrooms, and so I that may solve it. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know what the right answer is.
And
Well,
also
mostly we
when
don't
we
want to be
have-
at odds with what you would have been thinking either. 'cause
Right,
No,
well,
no.
that's, we haven't even,
Yeah.
that hasn't been on our radar at this point as a thought.
As our understanding is that the parks are going to be pretty simple, and it's up to the town to develop how to how to develop them and what to put in them. So I would think that would be the opportunity, if that's where you want to go. It certainly was spoken of and is very much encouraged, but that would be this group. The other thing that I should say we are doing is signage. That's the other piece that we're working on with the wayfinding piece as well, which I didn't mention.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
What I like, it may even make mention, and we have really two major projects. We have the Neighbors Together, but then we also have the master plan, so one is shorter, one is longer. Are you transferring a lot of the data you get to the master plan for the future? Because as I look at things like effectiveness of initiatives for future investments, well, that's things that are good now, but things we need to know in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jen and I have been in touch, and you know, she is great about letting me know when they're going to do a survey of some sort, so we're not trying to duplicate efforts and things like that. So, you know, I would say our two department, you know, between BMP and the planning department, we work well together. So, you know, we're just staying in touch about this stuff.
And the Planapalooza is going to be at Bundle.
It is going to be a bundle, yes.
That's
Yep.
good. So look forward to seeing that.
And we have a bathroom.
Look forward to seeing that promoted there too, because I
Yeah.
think that's going to be an excellent event.
Yeah.
People to get together and have their creative discussions. So.
Definitely. Did you have a question, Fard?
The 12-week period that we'll be in need of all that parking and stuff, and you are suggesting that employees use carpooling and stuff. Have you reached out, or are you planning to reach out to outlying businesses like Route 7 South or Exchange Street?
Yes.
Like businesses like mine, so each of them can accommodate like 10, 12 cars at a time?
Yes.
I think that would be a great idea to reach out.
Yes, and we've identified some of those businesses, but we'll put you on the list.
That'll be great, because I have a huge back parking
You
lot.
do, that's where the Cocoa Hut is
Yeah.
currently. Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll put you on the list for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be great.
Thank you. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Anyone
Thank you.
else?
Thank you for
Okay.
all you've done. I mean, I think you're helping the town get through the oncoming projects and so on, and I think you've raised the morale of the town very much.
That's our
And-
hope.
And it's been, I think, we owe you a great deal of
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well said, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Lazarus? Yes. Would you like to come up and join us? We were a little ahead of schedule, so we jumped ahead in the agenda, so sorry to keep you waiting.
That's
but,
fine.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So would you like to talk to us a little bit about your proposal? We've had some information that we've read ahead of time, but
Right.
if you want to take a little time and fill us in, that would be great.
Well, briefly, I had a thought, which is that a great many people,
Speak in the
I'm
mic.
sorry, a great many people that were prominent in Middlebury historically are fading from consciousness. And they were important people on the national stage as well as the local stage. And, they weren't just of local interest. These are important people, but they're fading away. And I'm an artist, and so walking down the main street in Middlebury, I looked at the buildings, and suddenly I had this vision in which I saw oversized portraits attached to the sides of the buildings with some text indicating who you're looking at. And it would be a history art display. And I'm a portrait painter. That's one of my main activities is portrait painting. I think you've all seen some of the work because it was sent in the packet, right? But I've also done projects in Middlebury, which I've indicated as well in the packet, where I've raised money and made certain things happen. I renovated Frog Hollow Alley some years back. The fence that's by the waterfall, and the whole thing was my efforts, along with Dr. Holm. He was with me on that. And then I also did a film on the history of Morgan horses in the Civil War, in the years that I've been in Middlebury, the other project that I did was the traveling exhibit. I had 35 artists contribute. It had to do with the 400th anniversary of Champlain discovering the lake for the French. And so I have skills at fundraising, project coordination, and portrait work. So I thought, well, maybe the town would be interested in my just, taking the bit and running, seeing if I couldn't do this.
Okay. So, staff's recommendation, so we, at a planning meeting a year ago, spring, we developed a new, project prioritization process, where it's kind of like this funnel process where staff does some evaluation and the, select board does some evaluation. Kathleen's recommendation to the board now is that we put this project kind of through that process and make sure we identify, that we have staff availability for the parts that we need to do, and do this
Okay.
process as part of,
Oh, of course.
considering the
Sure.
project.
Mhm.
So that's where I think we're at this point, if the board is agreeable.
Just something I could throw in here, which is that last week I contacted Jim Brangan. I don't know how many folks here know who he is. Do you know Jim?
I don't.
That's the Lake Champlain Basin Program up in the islands.
Okay.
And he's given me money on 2 other occasions for heritage projects. And he said that this would qualify. He said if it gets the go-ahead, he said I could provide you with like $7,500 toward the project.
Okay.
Because the portrait of Joseph Battelle would in the background would show the Morgan Horse Farm. And they said, so that means you've got 2 communities involved, Middlebury and Weybridge.
Okay.
And he said, so that would qualify it. And he said, he was quite enthusiastic. He said, this is definitely what I would call a heritage project. And the preservation of heritage is something that is his focus.
So, I think we'll rely on Kathleen a little bit to help us move through the process of, this project prioritization and identify, what we have available for resources. So I think we'll be in touch as we
Okay.
move through that process and
Right.
let you know what we decide.
I'm not anticipating a lot of involvement that would be needed. Essentially, I would take on getting the approval from the buildings. That's the first thing I would have to do to
Okay.
put these signs up. And then, as the project moved forward, I would present material periodically for review to make sure that the historical figures everyone's in agreement with those, and the design sketches and so on. But I don't think this would be a major involvement of time. I'm trying to design it so that,
Minimal time.
it basically would involve your bookkeeper, because all the checks would be made out to Middlebury, people who would give money, organizations the checks made out to Middlebury, I invoice Middlebury as my work gets done. And so it's more that the bookkeeper would be the key figure that I would be dealing with.
So it might be helpful to have an idea of the amount of time you think would
I don't know
be-
how long it takes for a bookkeeper to take a check in.
So maybe Jackie could estimate for us, just,
There are several touch points with staff, and
Okay.
I will identify those and cost out an estimate.
Okay, so we will consider it, and we'll move forward with our process and identify the pieces and go from there.
Okay, do you have any idea as to how long it might take for me to get a response?
We anticipated that we'd bring this back on October 29th.
Okay,
Do note that your October 29th meeting is very full.
So I think it would be reasonable for us to maybe consider, like, November.
November 12th meeting?
Yeah.
okay.
Only because we've already got a public hearing scheduled for the 29th and a full agenda for the 29th. So can you give us like 3 to 4 weeks?
Sure. My only thought is that it will take 6 months to accomplish this.
Okay,
And that's 6 months after I raise the funds.
okay,
So my hope, my belief is, I've tried to, if you looked at the packet at all that I
Yep.
sent, it connects a portrait with an organization. That's what I thought of doing.
right,
And, I did the bicentennial publication for the state of Vermont. I didn't include that in the material.
Okay.
And I found that if you've got a project that is popular, is well-liked, it's not that hard to get John Deere to pay for a portrait of John Deere, which they then get at the end, to own.
okay.
So,
So, thank you.
thank you very much. Any
Thank you for
questions
the
of any kind?
proposal. We will go through the process and get back to you, and Kathleen will stay in touch and let you know where we are in the process.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Nice.
coming tonight.
Okay.
Okay, Jim. I don't think I'm ahead of schedule anymore.
I'll see if I can.
No, that's good. How are you, Jim?
I'm fine, thanks. Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk tonight about the project we've heard from Neighbors Together and how things are going in town. We'll look at it from the other perspective, which is how things are going in the field on construction. So I like to start the presentations I've been doing with the finish line, which is the photo you're looking at over here on the screen. When I started this job, the finish line was 5.5 years off. We're now about 20 months off from the finish line. Contractually, July 1st, 2021 is the end of the project. And of course, next year will be the heavy lift for us. So let's take a look at the agenda for tonight. Basically, what I'd like to do is just review how we're doing in the field, keep bringing you up to date on 2019 construction progress, and then a quick look ahead at next summer and some of the planning that's taking place now to prepare for next summer. Project goals. This is just to remind us, from a construction point of view, our goals here are twofold. Number one, to replace those 2 downtown bridges with a tunnel that will reclaim our space in the town green. And number two, to rebuild the rail line, about 3,500 feet of the rail line. Essentially, that rail line as it exists in the downtown rail corridor. Those are the 2 V-Trans goals. Over on the community side, last year, probably 2 years ago, the Selectboard articulated its goals for the community. And just a reminder that we're focused here on safety. We're focused here on economic development and managing the viability of our downtown businesses, accessibility, scheduling, and of course, communication. So those are always paramount for us. Let's pause on this photo just for 1 minute because this is one half of the main event that's taking place downtown now. You've seen a lot of construction activity if you've walked by the area here. And one of the key goals here is to install what the construction guys call supportive excavation. And this is simply to stabilize the slopes on either side of the rail line in preparation for its excavation next year. That rail line will be excavated down to a depth of up to 11 or 12 feet underneath Merchants Row and Main Street, so they've got to support the sides. And so in this photo here, you're seeing a system that's been put together that has steel mini piles. Those are the mini piles that are lying on the ground in front. Timber lagging, whalers, tiebacks. I've learned a whole new vocabulary out in the field here, but to keep things simple, the idea here is simply to stabilize the slopes as they dig down for safety. So let's move ahead and just do a quick look at construction. So the goal here, one of the 2 goals, primary goals, was to stabilize those slopes by installing supportive excavation. That work is on schedule. In fact, it's a little ahead of schedule now. Another goal was to install new town sewer and stormwater lines, and those are, you can see them being built here on the other side of the temporary access road. There's an old sewer line that runs along Otter Creek, and that's being relocated to the South Pleasant Street side. So 1,300 feet of new sewer line is just about completed now and being tested. This week, Kubricki will start coming the other way in the same space there with a new stormwater drainage line. So the installation of new town infrastructure is a key part of this year's goal. That work is also ahead of schedule, too. Another piece of utility work is that there are several water, sewer, and stormwater lines that run underneath the rail line. They'll be exposed when they excavate down, so in advance of next summer, they're going deeper, and they're installing those lines at a deeper elevation now, so they're not in the way when they excavate down. Another goal is to remove the bedrock that sits underneath Main Street Bridge. You may remember last year that we were doing a lot of blasting to create that big launch pit, the centerpiece of the drainage system. That's because there was bedrock in the Printer's Alley area. The bedrock runs sort of from north of Main Street Bridge. It dies out about Main Street Bridge, and so we've been blasting there to prepare again for next year to make things run more smoothly. Those last two items, the lowering the utilities and the blasting of bedrock, are taking place on weekends. So there are 4 weekends, one of which we've already accomplished, in which blasting is taking place and the utility work is taking place as well, because Vermont Rail has ceased operations for these weekends. Next weekend is coming up this weekend. If last weekend's work is, or the mid-September's weekend work is anything to go by, impact on the community is relatively minor. We do shut things down for about 10 minutes during each blast. One of those blasts takes place about 6 in the morning, and there's not many people in Middlebury out and about then, and the other at 6 p.m., so we kind of bookend either side of the day here. So those 4 fall weekends are hopeful to avoid the last one, which is when Santa comes to town. And so we're working hard to kind of keep ahead, so we're not trying to blast when there are 200 kids and Santa Claus right downtown. In other news, Kubricki has rented the diner for a year from Town Hall Theater. That's their new headquarters. They were ambivalent about the tie-dye approach to the diner, but nevertheless, there they are. They'll be there all year. V-Trans and Kubricki will be back to meet with you. I thought that January might be a good time after your budgeting process, and to kind of, okay, here's what we accomplished this year, and to set the stage for what's coming next year. I think that would be what we would do. The last thing I wanted to mention about 2019 is we're really urging Vermont Gas to work in the trenches that Kubricki is going to be opening up, so they can do their kind of next phase of operation, which is to connect the Main Street businesses between Battelle Bridge and the bank to Vermont Gas. And I guess one of the bigger prizes for them is the Battelle block. They want to get across Main Street and Merchants Row over there too. So we're trying to minimize the impact on the town by having that work take place in parallel with the work that with the Kubrickis doing in town utilities. So that's 2019. That's what's happening in the field. Let's talk about what the impact is on the community, okay? And I think one of the key impacts has been on our residential communities. So the Water Street neighborhood, Cross Street neighborhood, South Pleasant Street, the Battelle Block, and Seymour Street. These areas are all, where people live, and they're also adjacent to where the construction activity is taking place. Now that activity starts, before 7 in the morning, and especially now it's getting dark earlier, it winds down. But during the day, there's the backup alarms and all the construction activity. So folks have been in touch with me if they have concerns, and Kubricki's very responsive. I would say that we're certainly having an impact in those neighborhoods, but by and large, our residents have been understanding, and knowing what's going on and what to expect is the main part of keeping them informed. Vermont Rail is now going through between 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning. This was negotiated by the state of Vermont so that they could have access to the tracks for a longer period. That does mean we have idling of trains in the middle of the night, south of town. That affects the Water Street neighborhood. North of town, that affects the Seymour Street neighborhood. And so we've been trying to we kind of work through those. Again, I think in most cases, if we let people know what's going on and why and what the timeline is, this will run through December. Then folks are fairly understanding, and we've been trying to work with Vermont Rail too to kind of cut down the amount of idling time on these trains. That is an impact, though. Board-on insurance, I wanted to point out that the state did purchase board-on. They were concerned about construction impacts on that building, so they did purchase the building in July. Then Bordon Insurance moved out and has merged with the Richards Group at 94 Court Street and is doing business down there as of October 1st. The state will, maintain ownership of the building, how and when, and they will dispose of the building is unknown at this point. So, but that building will remain empty for safety reasons going forward. There are 2 empty storefronts in the Battelle block. You've probably noticed them, the old Carol's Hungry Mind space and then the space right next to it are empty and, obviously some impact from the project there. There's probably a host of reasons why those 2 spaces are empty now. But on the other side, we have Buy Again Alley moving to 60 Main. We have Bundle at 51 Main, as Kelly talked about. Junebug has moved over into Marble Works, and even though there's a lot of construction activity in that area, checking in with those folks, weekly, they seem to be doing really well. There seems to be a good, really good foot traffic over there. Downtown parking, kind of in a holding pattern, not much has changed. When we can get the parking on Main Street that's alongside Triangle Park back in place, I work, on that and try to get that in place. And we have some upcoming roadway and lane closures on Merchants Row and Main Street, but we'll manage those very carefully as we have in the past. This has to do with town utilities being put in place. So that's 2019. Let me pause there and see if we have any questions before we turn the corner and look at 2020. Yeah. It's a quick run through, right? All right, let's move ahead to 2020. And I'm just going to very quickly remind you what the timeline is here. If we can go to the next slide there. May 4th through May 21st. Here's where Kubricki comes to town. We close Merchants Row to through traffic. Kubricki dismantles the Merchants Row Bridge and begins removing the ashlar blocks that form the abutment over there. The point of this is Kubricki mentioned to you when they came and asked for the Select Board's permission to do that, get a leg up. It's all about reducing risk during the 10 weeks, and this was deemed a significant way to kind of manage the risk there. No construction over Memorial Day weekend and commencement at the college. Then we move to the 10 weeks, and May 27th is a Wednesday. That's when things start, and contractually they're due to end on Wednesday, August 5th. I would say that the state and Kubricki are feeling pretty bullish about their ability to meet or beat that date. We'll see. Vermont Rail, as you know, will detour up the eastern side of the state. Main Street closed between Mill Street, Bakery Lane, and Seymour Street. Limited vehicle access, parking at the post office, accessibility maintained, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? This is our big lift that we've been eyeing for a while here, with the reopening due on August 5th. Just to take a quick, closer look, this is not a monolithic 10 weeks. Things are going to change rapidly as the 10 weeks evolves. I would say that the first 4 or 5 are going to be the toughest. The first 2 is excavation of the rail line from one end to the other, 1,800 truckloads of soil being excavated out of Water Street and Seymour Street and being taken out Cross Street to the Five-Field Farm, which is the farm that sits just past the ledge on Route 30 there. That's about a 2-week operation. In weeks 3 to 5, 3, 4, 5 is when all the big precast comes into town that's been stored at Five-Field Farm. It too will come in on Route 30 and into downtown. That's going to be the most challenging part of the operation for us. So I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing there to manage it. We can move over to planning here. Traffic control is going to be the big issue. Cross Street, Route 7 are jammed up now during rush hours, and right. Just this afternoon, driving around town, it can be backed up from Hannaford's all the way to Court Square during rush hour. So we're going to do as much as is feasible to try to manage the traffic. At the end of the day, it's going to be a challenge. There's no question. The Regional Planning Commission, Neighbors Together, VHB, VTrans, and I are working on kind of a broad mobility plan. Nancy mentioned some of that has to do with employee parking downtown and how we manage parking in town. Another aspect will be what roadway restrictions we put in place. And we've talked before about eliminating, for example, the left-hand turn from South Pleasant Street onto Cross Street, perhaps eliminating the left-hand turn from South Street onto Route 30, some other kind of temporary restrictions on roadways to help manage traffic. We've been talking about a local shuttle that will help people kind of get from point A to point B. All these will kind of be bundled together into a mobility plan that will be presented to the Select Board, is kind of our best thoughts on that. I've been meeting, I met with the senior leadership group at Middlebury College because I wanted to focus them in on Route 30. You know, to me, that's probably the biggest impact on the college. We'll be doing construction during reunion, but I think, you know, over the course of the 10 weeks, the safety of the students, faculty, staff who are crossing Route 30 in those 4 crosswalks is got to be paramount. We'll probably recommend to the Select Board that the parking on that section of Route 30 be eliminated during the 10 weeks, or at least during that first 5 weeks or so. So I brought that to the senior leadership group. They appreciated the more detailed look at what's coming. They will go back to their various groups and kind of work with us on their plan for managing safety. I'll do the same with Porter. To me, those are the kind of the 2 big employers to go to. I've also suggested they consider flex time to try to get us out of that, you know, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock rush in town, and on the other side, the back end. I know that Neighbors Together has been talking with Mary Hogan too, because that really backs up when parents, you know, come to pick up their kids. So we're trying to get those pressure points or choke points and kind of at least reduce the volume that's coming through here. Emergency services is going to be critical that the fire department, the police department, MREMs, you know, get where they need to go. And so we're working with them through the Public Health and Safety Committee. Kubricki is contracting with Peter Newton in the Sheriff's Department to act as guide vehicles for the precast concrete that's coming in. So that's good to have not only the visibility, but to have it managed locally. The Kubricki crew will be housed here in town. Right now they're looking at housing people at the Courtyard Marriott and at the Middlebury Inn and at Inn on the Green. So they're kind of spreading the money around. They'll be eating locally here too, and we've had several discussions about food trucks that could come on site locally here and feed the crew. The other plan is taking place, like Neighbors Together covered a lot. You know, certainly it's part of my job to support their efforts here in town, and I continue to try to cover residents' questions in my blog as well, so that we can anticipate what kind of concerns there are. Benefits, well, you know, if we could move ahead to that, to the benefits themselves. I think you're familiar with all of these, but they range from our new parks downtown, the new infrastructure. I wanted to point out that the utility lines have all been removed in Marbleworks now, so the next time you are at the post office, if you glance over Marbleworks and then bring your imagination into, you see what removing utility lines can do for a viewpoint too, is the gateway here. Amtrak service.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but it's pretty amazing. Did anyone take some before and after?
Yes, we have a lot of, you know,
It's pretty
we all get
amazing.
used to
big-
those utility
big
lines.
power poles right behind the bank, they're all gone, so.
Yes, you can start to see it taking shape, even though it's very much an active construction zone. Benefits go on. I think one of the unexpected benefits is the way that the town has been galvanized to move forward faster than other towns that are dealing with the, you know, contemporary issues. Our downtown master plan and some of the other plan that's taking place, I think we're ahead of the curve, and we were pushed there by this project. So I like to end these presentations again with the finish line, and that's a pretty cool view of downtown, right? It doesn't look like that today, but it will look like that or something similar to that when we hit July of 2021. And then the last one, I like this one a lot because the kids. When was the last time you saw a lot of kids playing downtown? And, you know, this is really, why are we going through this pain? Well, we're going through it in part for our kids, right? For the next generation of Middleburyans. And so hopefully this will be their playground. So that's where we are right now at the midpoint. Again, we're on schedule or ahead of schedule. I think, from my point of view, it's a very well-managed project. And the Neighbors Together is doing a super job of kind of managing the impact on the community. I think the project's in good hands right now. So.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you for your part in managing this project and keeping us up to date.
Sure,
I
thanks.
certainly really appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. So does the board have questions for Jim?
No.
Well, no question,
Comments?
no questions. Looking at this, I feel like every time I go down there, it's like watching something being sculpted.
Yeah.
Because you see a little bit more taken away, a little bit more put in place. You look at these last renditions, and you can see it happening.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, certainly this board member, and I don't want to presume I'm speaking for the rest of the board, but maybe I am, is that we've been very impressed. I certainly have been very impressed with the professionalism of Ricky and the crew.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the fact of all that work going on, and it's, for the most part, you don't notice it's there if you move
Yeah.
about your daily business. It's very impressive. It
Thanks.
has certainly been has great entertainment value, because people are always looking
Watching.
over the rail to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the Cross Street Bridge or they're by the post office. There's pointed out, they're always staring at the sign, and they're looking at the project, and they're staring at the sign again, or looking at it, so they've been tremendous.
They'll be pleased to hear that. I'll convey that to them. One of the comments they gave to me early on this construction season was, "We love it here. Everywhere else we work, people throw things at us and yell at us."
So, Jim, your communications are outstanding, and your blog is so helpful. So if somebody wants to access the blog, how do they do that?
Thanks, Laura. So you can go on to middleburybridges.org and sign up. Simple process to sign up to receive the blog, which comes out every Friday morning, like clockwork, a weekly update, short read. And you can, through there, you can also email me if you have questions, concerns that you'd like me to address in the blog.
Great.
So,
Thank
okay.
you, Jim. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the
and
update.
I'd invite any of you down, if you want a tour, you want to see up close what's going on. Nick's been down there, but we have extra vests, hard hats. If anyone would like to come down and really get a ground level view, be happy to conduct a tour.
I'll have to take you up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. All right, follow-up discussion to September 23rd, Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. Laura, are you taking us through that?
Kathleen, there was an easement.
Oh,
Yeah, we have that.
Jim.
Jim?
Jim was just going to report that has been signed by Kim Smith of the Marble Works, so everything's in order with the easement for the Lazarus Park handicap accessibility.
I jumped
piece.
right ahead, didn't I?
Yep.
Thank you, Farad. So do we need to,
Nope, it's been executed by Kim and conveyed to the town's attorney, so everything's in order
Just
there.
FYI.
okay.
Good.
Okay. Let's go back to the Public Health and Safety Committee.
Right, so recognizing that we are really tight on our time and that this is a complex issue, we're not going to be able to say a lot. But what I will say is that the Public Health and Safety Committee met recently and just looked at the growing number of homeless and transient people that we find in Middlebury and downtown. And that's a reflection of the wonderful services that we have. So our public library, charter house, all the human services that are housed here in Middlebury attract a lot of people, because we do a good job of servicing people. So that's the dilemma, so that means that people are frequenting the green that are different or outsiders and uncomfortable to others. So we're trying to weigh how to address this. We're noticing that it's been stressful on the services, especially for St. Stephen's and certainly for the police department, that not all of these people, but a handful of them keep the services really, really busy, and they're pretty serious. And Chief Hanley's here. I don't know that you want to echo or state anything. We're not trying to demonize these people, but we are trying to, and we want to support people, getting access to services and help, mental health services and housing services, but some are not interested in that, and they will keep us very busy. So that led to some lively discussion about, do we discourage that, for example, by turning power off on the gazebo, which we currently do? Do we turn more power off? That's why you heard me talking about Wi-Fi, because one of the attractions is access to Wi-Fi. So people like to hover around the town office and the library because we provide Wi-Fi and water and bathrooms. The issue is like 6 to 6 PM on, so where are people going to go? And it's a real concern. And we don't have all the answers, but we know what the issues are. We know that other shelters, and I think Burlington and Rutland, are either closing or they're just coming here now, right? So I see Doug is here from Charter House, and we have a big open house for the Charter House this weekend and the beginning of the winter season, so he's definitely on the ground level, knowing what we're talking about. And what we recognize at the Public Health and Safety meeting is that the people that are staying at the Charter House are not the ones that we're talking about as the ones that are really causing the trouble. These are campers that are coming from out of state even, and just settling in Middlebury and camping here and littering and fouling the property and being intrusive. So that's the update. I just wanted you to be aware that the discussion is ongoing and it's difficult because, we want to continue to provide good services, but it also attracts more people.
So Laura, are you going to continue the conversation in Public Health and Safety Committee meeting? And when's the next?
Maybe Tom would come forward.
Do you want to comment on that, Chief?
Sure.
Like if somebody wanted to participate in the conversation, do you have a scheduled time where they might be able to come and participate?
Well, we did at the September 23rd meeting. We devoted almost the entire meeting to that.
We had a full house.
We had a very full house. We ran out of chairs a couple of times, and thank you to Laura being our chair matron, I guess we'd call her, rounding up chairs for us. But yeah, this problem has completely diverted our police resources from everything else. I see the folks from East Middlebury are here. We can't get out there and run radar. We're dealing with a woman downtown today screaming and yelling at tourists going by, another one getting in a fight with two others. Trespassing on people's property, the larcenies, the shoplifting, sexual assaults, aggravated assaults between these groups. We're constantly just involved and just completely diverted to dealing with them. The intoxicants, many times we have no police officers on duty here at all because we're taking them to Act 1 or taking them to Rutland. And this is a regular event. This happens daily, morning, noon, and night. So we're completely absorbed, involved in this issue. So it's serious to us. And where are they coming from? We know most of them now. We're on a first-name basis with them. They're from Ohio, Chicago, Los Angeles, Missouri, Florida, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York. They all tell the same story. They came here because they heard the social services were good. I don't know if they have a network or how they learn about this in Chicago or Washington State. We have a fella here that's got a very serious medical and mental health condition whose family dropped him off here and went back to Washington. And that's been a constant issue for us, either with problems on the bus, some of the perceptions that we face to deal with folks like that. And so we've often taken them to Porter Hospital or taken them to some other place, a number of different people. So the problems are more than just somebody that's homeless. There's a ton of social issues that we've been thrust into. At a time when I've got 3 officers out of work and a staff vacancy, it's really stressed the police service out.
Okay.
So it's a problem that needs to be looked at, and we have a meeting coming up on the 21st. I just sent it over for the agenda to get published. We'll do a brief update. We've got a bunch of other things on the Public Safety Committee agenda for the 21st of October, but we're going to stay on top of this. And fortunately, we've got good communication with Doug, the shelter, and some of the others, and I think we've all been working to try to deal with the problem individually, and I think we need to just come together and come to some resolution to this.
Okay. So
Well, one of the other things that came up, Tom, I don't know, is that Addison County doesn't have a detox center. And so the police are spending a lot of time having to transport to these other facilities, so.
Well, it's a 3-hour commitment of 2 officers to deal with one person that's inebriated with no place to take them.
So I'm not sure who initiates that, but, that maybe that's the counseling service. I'm not sure, but,
That's the legislature.
The
They're aware of this. I was on the committee that looked at this about 10 years ago now and come up with some recommendations, and they pretty much did what they do with a lot of, I'm not sounding cynical, but a lot of summer study reports is that they think it's interesting and they've got other priorities. So we're still in that pickle.
Okay. So, So keep us up to date and let us know what the select board can do to support you, right? I mean,
Is the town green the major focal point of these gatherings and stuff, or is there other places of?
The town green, the gazebo primarily, but the pavilion over at the rec park has become another problem area. And then a lot of private property
So
down along the creek.
So the question I had was, is there a purpose for the gazebo being there and having a power source there for, that becomes an attracting place for them to hang around, right?
Yeah, Public Works has disconnected the power there. They turn it on when we have a permit for activities there. And there's some other power sources there that St. Stephen's and the town are going to be dealing with, shutting the things down.
And St. Stephen's is bearing the brunt of this issue because a lot of these people are using their flower beds at latrine,
Yes.
using this, and which is very alarming to, at the last meeting of the Neighbors Together, one of them mentioned that there are at least 3 of them that are permanently using it, and there's nothing anybody can do.
Yeah, we can't throw them out of the green. It's public property, and everybody's entitled to use it.
So then again, we have to discuss about the purpose of the town green. It looks very isolated. It's not, people don't use it as a park ever, except for the summertime, right? So the gazebo actually, I think is becoming an attraction for them.
Yeah,
It's a shelter.
pretty much. There are groups of them in there all day. And it come midnight, we move them out.
Yeah.
I go down there now, I've gone down a few times to just talk to them and just sit there, and just be there. And I hear that kind of story, but they'll tell me that families do come down and they're kind to them and they're trying, and this is, I think, the good occupants, not the bad occupants, but, and they say that they pick up the litter for the others and that it's just the others that are giving them a bad rap. It's just difficult. And I think we need to be encouraged to go down and use the green because it's ours too, so.
okay.
I know Doug is back there. Doug, I didn't know if there was anything else that you wanted to say before. Okay.
Thanks for being here, Doug. What did you want to say, Nick?
Well, the chief mentioned a good point in listening to this, and I've been made aware of this and talking to the officers for more than a few years on this board, between this issue and some of the mental health issues that they're dealing with. And the bottom line is that it has to come down as a solution, and this is something that's hitting all Shire towns.
Mm-hmm.
It's what happens when you're the Shire town is you end up getting these situations. It has to come from the legislature. It has to be a big picture issue that they solve. And so what I'm thinking is that this should be maybe one of the topics we bring up to them and have, if the chief could be here, Sergeant Covey did a fantastic job of explaining what you're dealing with, because I want to be sympathetic, but then I'm also recognizing the fact that our officers are often not here to take care of us if we need them, because they're being pulled away for all of these things, which it's kind of beyond their task, it seems to me, of what they're doing. So I understand, I see the thing for East Middlebury, you want better traffic enforcement. They don't have time. They don't, because of these other things they're stressing. So I would say, personally, I'd like to see this as one of the priority items, and we say, this is a problem that you cannot continue to not solve. You have to solve this, and we can't always be the victims of your lack of action.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I think you're right, that it's a problem that our legislators ought to be considering and acting on. And I think it may very well be wise for us to invite our legislators and make clear to them the need that we have. And I mean, we've invited our legislators before, and
We have them scheduled.
some of them have come.
We have them scheduled for November 19th,
Pardon?
and we
They're
we
scheduled
have
for
the-
November 19th.
Not November 19th?
Yep.
Okay, well, I think then we should make sure that
It should
they're
be on the
aware
agenda.
before they come, and they better come, that this is a pressing issue, and we would like to know from them what steps, I mean, they're the ones who who introduced legislation for these purposes, and also legislation that provides funding for the measures that need to be taken.
So
It
maybe,
would seem to
sorry.
me that, and you should come too, so that you could, and Doug, and so that you could present the problem to them concretely and forcefully.
Are
Okay.
you available on the 19th?
Sure.
Okay. And I know it's a big ask, but do we have a law enforcement, other than yourself, that might comment also?
Sergeant
One of our
Cody?
officers?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I know that takes him or her out of the rotation, but,
Oh, that's fine.
okay.
They'd be happy to come down. This is a problem that has overwhelmed us.
Yeah.
And we've always had homeless, and we've always been able to deal with it, find temporary lodging for them or whatever, bring that place. But this is beyond. They're migrating here from Burlington once they stop, to make the stop in Burlington and get shipped down to us, coming in on the Actor buses. And I hate to use terms like them and this, because that's not what I'm trying to get at. But it's a complex issue that the legislature isn't going to wave a wand and make it go away. It's going to take some real thought and how to figure this out.
Okay.
Well, they have the means, I think.
All right.
And
That's their
Okay.
job.
they should be encouraged to use them to the best that they can. You're not going to get perfection, but
Right. And meanwhile, we are trying to do what we can to take some measures to keep things clean and safe.
Okay. Thank you, Laura, for the update. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Doug, thanks for coming in. Let's move on. Consideration of correspondence regarding the opioids class action suit. Do you want to take us through that, Kathleen?
So just very briefly, since we won't be coming to a decision point tonight, by November 22nd, the board has to decide if it would like to opt out of the opioids class action suit, which is a class action suit brought by municipalities against the makers of opioid drugs. There have been some other towns in Vermont who have filed their own suits. So right now, I'm investigating the pros and cons of proceeding with the class action versus going on it our own. And we'll take a look at where that stands in our priorities for action as well and report back.
If we want to take on our own, we have to opt out kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
And as part of your evaluation, are you just getting council's opinion?
No, I'm going to contact the other municipalities that have filed their own suits or are planning to. St. Albans and Bennington
Okay.
are two of them. And also VLCT hosted a forum recently on this, and I'll contact their staff as well.
Okay. All right, thank you, Kathleen. All right, East Middlebury residents request for a speed limit review of State Route 116. Thank you all for being here. I apologize for the delay. So we're considering a request from residents of East Middlebury to have a review of the speed limit on Route 16 as you head north out of East Middlebury. Do you want to take us through?
Sure, or Ann, if you'd
Ann,
like to come
Ann,
up. I was
you're welcome
first
to come up.
contacted by East Middlebury resident Ann Christie with a concern about the speed of traffic coming from the north, Bristol end of town, into East Middlebury. Right now, it's posted for 40 miles per hour, right into the heart of the village. So, there you go.
I had been hearing neighbors of mine who live along 116 talking about fear of seeing each other cross the road and needing to take extreme steps to make sure cars would be sure to slow down. I've heard residents talk about motorcycles having races to see how fast they can go before the corner by the cemetery. Another resident spoke about how she fearfully looks at cars going out of town to the north around the corner by the cemetery. It's a blind corner with no shoulder. And also seeing cars coming south around that corner that are cutting it, and she just knows it's a head-on collision waiting to happen. And it was interesting to me, we've had a long stretch of time where the state has been repaving that road, and when they finished repaving, they reposted the speed limit sign, and residents saw the 40-mile-an-hour sign that's posted right by the intersection, and seriously thought that the speed limit had previously been 35. And so my initial question was, why did the state move the speed limit up? Only to find out that it had always been 40. And I don't know if it's helpful to you, but I have an extra copy if you'd like. I looked at speed limits in East Middlebury and surrounding towns, and I noticed that in Middlebury, well, in East Middlebury, it's 40 miles an hour posted from the Route 125, Route 116 intersection north, and it's 35 miles an hour on Route 125 between Sand Hill Bridge and halfway from the 125-116 intersection to Route 7. It's 35 miles an hour on Route 116 along Ossey Road, on Church Street, from Church Street halfway to Route 7. That's in East Middlebury. So the rest of the community is 35. In Middlebury, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour on Route 7, 125, and 30. The speed limit is 30 on Route 125 in Ripton. It's 30 on Route 116 and 17 in Bristol. It's 30 miles an hour on Route 116 in Heinsberg. It's 25 miles an hour on Route 7 and 73 in Brandon, and not the construction zone. It's 35 miles an hour on Route 17 in New Haven by the Green. It's 30 miles an hour on Route 100 in Rochester, and 35 miles an hour on Route 100 in Hancock. In East Middlebury, the public buildings that I was able to think of, and it may not be all of them, in addition to all the residences, and we are a high walking community on the sidewalks. We pride ourselves for that. We have a school, a library, community building, an inn, a wood shop, engineering offices, lumber company, post office, 2 churches, store and gas station, agricultural business, electrical supply business, and a swimming hole. So thank you for 2 things. Thank you for hearing my concern and responding. And thank you for doing the work of looking into what the regulations that the state will need to deal with when they look into the matter, so that we can be effective in putting this through.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Kathleen's and staff recommendation is that we sign a letter or to Ian, I can't say his last name, at the Vermont Traffic Committee asking for a review. So if the board is agreeable, hang on just a second, I will get to you. Would someone like to make a motion?
Oh, go ahead, Nick, do you want to do it?
Doesn't matter, Laura, okay. I move to sign the select board letter to Ian DeGuitz, requesting that the Vermont Traffic Committee review the speed limit on Route 116 in East Middlebury.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Now I can take your comment if you'd like to come up. If you want, there's another live mic here. If you would just introduce yourself for the minutes and stuff.
Great. I'm Tim Page. I'm from East Middlebury as well, from 421 East Main. I wanted to thank you for your work, and I also wanted to thank you. I assume that was you who put the sign up at the post office.
Nope, those are more neighbors.
Oh, great, which is, well, I really appreciate that. And actually, before you pass your motion, I was going to ask whether or not we could actually expand the request for that letter to include 125 in East Middlebury. Our family has had our house in East Middlebury since 1852. I think the street has been an incredible benefit, but also has had brought issues to the community throughout its existence. More recently, within the last decade or so, I think it's had a negative impact on the quality of life and is becoming what is a real menace. The street, as you mentioned, is at 35 miles an hour. It's straight. People can see it straight. There's no natural curve to it. They're either coming down the hill very quickly or they're trying to speed up to keep the momentum up the hill. The volume, the nature has changed, and it's more and more busy from early in the morning till late at night, all the way basically from, I think there's a quiet period now from about 1 to 4 a.m. But other than that, it's pretty busy, pretty constant. And finally, I think the speed, because of the vehicles are bigger now, they're heavier. The posted speed limit, as you mentioned, is 35 miles an hour, but actually the de facto speed limit is 45 because of everybody drives a little bit closer. And in point of fact, if you stand out there at night, and I often do with my dog, it's a lot quicker than 45 miles an hour.
And 49 is permissible legally.
So, there you go. So, I think if it's possible, I'd like to see that draft, or that motion revised to include the whole village. And I know many of my neighbors would appreciate it. It's been an ongoing talk as we stand with the dogs. And if it's necessary, I'm happy also to help volunteer to demonstrate that support.
Okay, thank you. If
Thanks.
I could just ask, so Kathleen, we have asked the state to consider the speed limit on that section in the
We did
past, right?
before. Yeah.
And we have some history on their response. Can we share that with?
Tom, can you summarize that? What the state has said in the past
Kathleen?
About-
to our
'Cause
request?
She'll make sure we.
Not the 2007 study that you had shared with us about 116, but on 125, like when we asked for the speed limit to be reduced, or I think it was to put up signs.
I thought we've asked
Cautioning people.
about signs and we've asked about engine
To slow down.
brakes, but we also made a request specifically for a lower speed limit, didn't we?
They had done a speed study there in the 90s, and they just weren't inclined to change the speed limit
Or was that long
at
ago?
that point. It was quite a while ago. I think, was that the last one? We did a speed study there as well, around 2007. And, you know, it's there, but we don't have any control over the speed limit. So the state was not inclined to do it. They use a lot of factors other than the speed of the cars. They look at road conditions, offset sidewalks, straight visibility, accident history, and things like that. And they just, at that point, they just were not going to change the speed limit.
Okay,
I think it's appropriate to ask.
Okay.
Things have changed since they've last done their speed study there in both areas, and see where it goes. I know, if I just want to address the comment that Ann made about the 35 sign, we, years ago, had adopted state speed limits as town speed limits as well, and our town speed limit for that section of 116 is 35, because that's what was based on what was there at the time. But unfortunately, we can't enforce the 35 because the state speed limit has precedence.
okay. So, so we have a motion on the floor and
You need to amend it.
And it approves the letter as written. Do we want to consider changing that?
I think at this point it's probably wise.
Okay, so would we just remove that motion and make a new motion?
Or you could amend it to add Route 125?
Yeah.
Amend it to amend Route 125 from the bridge to
Route 7?
Route 7, take it all the way to 7, yeah.
Okay. Laura, are you
Yep.
amendable to that? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion from the board?
Well, I just wanted to ask if it's possible to put up any of the sandwich road signs that's just in the crosswalks there by the post office. Would that help slow people down at that particular intersection? I know you can't answer that because you don't have control over the placement of those signs, but maybe Bill Kernan could.
A sandwich,
Those,
The A-frame signs, the sandwich boards?
Oh,
the standing, what do you
the
call those?
pedestrian, the silent crossing guards?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I
I
noticed.
don't know if we can put those, Tom, on a state highway, but we can check.
I know the state is often pretty sticky about things in their right-of-way, and will often go through and remove things. So maybe we should, we should ask, maybe Dan or Bill to reach out to V-Trans and see about, before we consider that. Okay?
Yeah, you need to do that. I just know what I went through to get that one speed sign posted out there a few years ago. A lot of hoops and a long time to get that approved.
Right. Ann?
I seem to remember from a few years ago, there might be a difference in East Middlebury now being a designated village.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly.
Well, at this point, we'll do the ask, and see where it goes from there, but it's, doesn't hurt, and could actually have some benefits, so let's go for it.
Yes, sir. Would you mind coming up to a microphone and introduce yourself, please? Sorry to make you travel up. I appreciate it. Take your time.
I'm Leo Vians. I live at 37 Aussie Road,
Okay.
right by that 40-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay.
And since they paved the road, it's a regular racetrack. I mean, they're passing each other and everything else. Anyways, what I wanted to say is there's a lot of problems with trucks and jake brakes. You know what a jake brake is?
Yep.
It's an engine brake
Yep.
that is controlled by the driver.
Yep.
And they do 40% of the braking. So the drivers like to use them. I drove tractor trailer for 2 million miles, so I know what they're about. But when they will run below 25 miles an hour, the jake brakes don't work. So if we could reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour, it would cure all the problems that we have with jake brake noise, speeding, everything.
Okay. I think the board we'll vote and, go from there. Any other comments from the board or, okay? So all in favor, board is good, no more comments. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll send a letter to the state and we'll see what we get for a response. And I'm sure Kathleen will do a fabulous job of keeping you all in the loop on what they say. And we'll go from there. Okay? Thank you all for coming and thanks for your work and concern, and we'll do the best we can to get what we can out of the state. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Approval of the check warrants. Farhad, you're up for that? Nope. Oh, sorry. I'm going by my,
That's pretty straightforward.
Lindsay, okay.
I had 2 phone calls today about his Middlebury also.
Yeah.
But they already addressed that, so.
Ready?
yes.
I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $314,942.04, consisting of $211,437.77 for accounts payable and $103,504.27 for payroll for the period of September 25th through October 8th, 2019.
Second.
Boy, that was, give it to Victor?
Yep.
Thank you, Victor.
He's the victor.
I heard stereo and all right, any comments, questions? No, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Town managers report, Kathleen.
Good news, we were recently informed by Jim Carrion, supervisor of the loss control risk management services with VLCT, that we received a 2019 equipment grant from our property insurance carrier, making the town eligible for a grant of up to $2,700. The amount is 50% of the town's request for the purchase of 4 pieces of safety equipment for use by the water department, highway department shop, and at the wastewater treatment facility, as noted in the grant application in your packet. Since 2015, the town has successfully leveraged passive equipment grant program to receive 50% of reimbursements on more than $43,000 in safety ergonomic equipment purchases across all town departments.
Great, good news. Wonderful.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Board member concerns. Laura?
I just want to say I'm impressed with Middlebury College's new art museum on display on women's suffrage and related talks, so don't miss it. This week, actually tomorrow, Wednesday, Ruth Hardy, our representative, is our senator is going to give a talk about why electing more women matters, and she'll be at the Robert Jones Building at 4:30. So it's open to the public, to go, and I'm impressed that we have the representation that we do in leadership, both on our elected boards and in our businesses, our manager, et cetera. So not to miss that. And I'm also impressed by the new staff that we've hired recently for Middlebury. Our library has a new assistant. I think in the finance department we have somebody that's just started. And of course, we've met some new officers. So they all bring vibrancy and good skills, and I'm really impressed and wish them well in their work with us.
Great, thank you, Laura. Victor, do you have anything?
Just a follow-up to driving at high speeds. I notice, it seems to me, I don't know whether maybe it's because I'm old and I drive slower than I used to, but I find more and more people are riding my tail. And there seems to be a kind of harshness and lack of awareness that the roads are community affairs, and I think some of the information that we've been hearing about speeding and so on, we have a concern. We talked about the concern with people who come to the community and are problematic. I have a fear that our citizens are becoming problematic. Of course, we have a notorious example in the White House, I think, that seems to give credit to that kind of nastiness. But I think it's a serious problem. It's not only the matter of people who, as I say, are on bad times, have mental health. There's an attitude sickness that seems to be that has invaded our culture, and I wish we could change it. I think at least we should be aware of it and combat it whenever we can.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay?
Thinking about Mr. Lazarus and his art proposal, I'll again say I wonder if having a committee that could look at arts in the downtown area or in Middlebury in general and vet projects and help look for funding and help do some of the work that would otherwise fall on town staff would mean that we could have more art installations downtown. I think we're noticing from Bundle that when things change, people come in when everything's not the same all the time. So I really think we should consider that, forming some sort of arts-focused committee. We're already a very arty town, but it would be potentially something that could sort of, I envision it as sort of like coordinating all the things that are already going on and looking for the funding, that sort of thing.
Okay. I think it's
Good idea.
something we could certainly
The
consider
Town Art
in our,
Commission.
Yeah.
The Arts Commission,
Yeah.
yeah,
In our
I think it
when we're evaluating
that
committees
makes very
and
good
stuff,
sense.
right,
yeah,
Kathleen?
yeah.
Okay. Farhad?
Two comments. One about the speed limit. I had a couple phone calls today from residents of East Middlebury, and they mentioned something very strange, that since people that come from that side of the mountain are normally out-of-staters, and the college kids who are not real residents, and they're not aware of, like you notice downtown, sometimes you'll have an out-of-state vehicle that will make a wrong turn. They enter this no entry zone, right?
Yep.
So they mentioned that is one of the things they noticed, that there are a lot of out-of-state cars that tend to speed more than the locals. Yeah, I don't know, you live there, so I don't know if you have noticed that. The other thing I wanted to mention was about the homeless situation. We just talked quite a bit about it. One of the positives of that is one of my employees who came here a couple months ago, unfortunately did not have a home, but they just secured a house. Both husband and wife got a job, and they worked hard, and they just got approved for an apartment, and they're moving in. And incidents like these give a bad name to hardworking people, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it is a perfect example of a few bad apples
Oh, yeah, definitely.
coloring the whole barrel, but.
Well, it's actually why I think it would be really quite good if we could hear what Laura and I heard from Sergeant Covey and Chief Hanley, because Chief Hanley actually started off with a clear distinction of the homeless versus this transient population. And is, in the way summarized in brief, with homeless, they're people who are, through some aspects of misfortune or events, ended up in this position, but they're working hard to get out of that. And they're contributing to society. This other group that he's talked about, they're not contributing to society. They tend to migrate around and go where they're opportunistic many times, but so they're really guests of the town. They're not residents of the town, they're guests. And unfortunately, I remember John Tenney used to say, "We welcome as guests, but you have to be good guests." So anyway, that distinction is clear, and I think you just helped to clarify that quite well. So anyway, as far as the thought of the arts, Lindsay, I think that's probably something. Have you mentioned that into the master planning process to Jen? Because those are the type of things that, from what I can gather in my time spending with the master planning team, they want to hear it and build it in, and they've probably seen successes of that around it, because it does add a vibrancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice, so, anyway, that's good, but no other, I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple quick things from me. College town meetings, Kathleen, if you could just give us an update on
The lunch.
if we have anything scheduled, because we haven't done, we're into the fourth quarter. I don't think we've done one for,
Not since the spring.
yeah, so we're probably
reach
due
out
to them
and-
to think about that. And then if you could let Bill know, I was at the bank today and his slideshow isn't working in our window display. When he's down in that area, would you ask him to restart that, please?
Okay.
And then I was dealing with internet outages over the weekend, so I'm a little bit behind, but hopefully when I go home, we'll have an agenda to Kathleen for Creek Road Task Force meeting this Friday at 1:30. I apologize, I had hoped to get it in the packet at least by Monday morning, but it didn't work. So anyway, if anyone's interested, I know Kathleen sent some information around, but we do have a meeting, so I'm just letting you know. That's it, right? We're good?
Good.
So, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Victor. Any opposed?
That was yesterday.
Okay,
I didn't say that.
all right.
No, I thought I.
Thank you, everyone.
I don't
I
think so.
didn't,
I don't know.